Okay, well, here we are again, right? I was planning on doing a self-tape, but, I'm not quite ready. I wanted to buy myself a little bit of time, but I'm like, oh man, I should still post something. So I wanted to tell a story. Yeah. Alright, so back in 2008, right? I was living in Baltimore, Maryland. I had recently gone back to live with my stepfather at his home. It was a house that me and him had actually built together, if you believe this. And at that point I had been in the street for a year and a half, So I mean, it was a nice break, I suppose. I'd gotten a job at a Carrabba's up on Bel Air Road, and then later at the Benji's Drive-In Theater, which was interesting. Got to see Kung Fu Panda, got to see the 2008 version of Hulk. I don't know. They don't have many drive-ins anymore, so yeah, that was cool. But anyway, after some time there, my money started running tight, and I couldn't afford to buy weed anymore, and I decided I was going to learn how to grow for myself. Because, back then, when you would buy weed, often you had seeds in your bags, so you could do that. Now, not so much. But anyway, so, on top of caring for the property, it was a quarter acre. So, there was a big backyard and a shed and some four-wheelers and things like this and whatever, and my garden, my days were pretty full. I typically stay pretty busy, and I don't just mean in terms of, street people. I mean, normies, I stay pretty busy. But one weekend he came back from one of his trips. So he liked to go shooting. He had a lot of guns. And when he would come back, I would clean them for him, take care of the house, cook, all this crap. I was like his woman or something. I don't want to say it like that, but yeah. But one weekend he comes back with a beagle puppy, and this puppy, it was probably like a few weeks old. Like, it looked like its eyes had just opened. And I, because of all my responsibilities and everything, I really wasn't wild about having a dog around the house. We already had 2 cats, all this other shit, it seemed like a lot. And yeah, it really was. His name was Sam, he was mostly white with spots, and he had brown ears and, a black mask. Nice dog. Probably the best dog I ever had in my life. So, time goes on, whatever. This dog would wake me up at 5 in the morning, right, to go to the bathroom. And it's 5 a.m., I have to go pee too. So, I just take him into the bathroom with me, let him go pee on the tiles. We didn't cheap out on materials when we built this house. So, the bathroom was all tiles. No big if the dog pees there. You just clean it up. But after a certain amount of time, my stepdad's father, senior, he got mesothelioma cancer. Because in his younger years he would remove asbestos and it caught up with him, and it got to the point where he had to come live there, Now, that wasn't a big deal at all, hey, family's family, right? Yeah. We did have to go and clean out his house. And the thing about this was he was a pretty severe hoarder. He had a lot of stuff laying around there that there's no farm equipment, for example. I mean, you don't have a farm. Why do you have farm equipment? But anyway, so like we go and do that, and the first day I went to go do this, like I had my change of clothes. I expected it was going to be dirty, sitting in a backpack. I set it in the front room. I tell everybody, don't move my backpack for a reason. Do you know what they did? They moved the backpack. And I swear to you, this backpack did not show back up for 6 months. Literally until they cleaned out the entire property did my backpack show up. Yeah. And I truthfully believe that the reason why, my stepdad was all about going there to do this, because, it was a lot of work, was because, his father really liked collecting firearms as like, currency, sort of like an investment, So at that time, I think we recovered a little over 300 different weapons from there, right? Which, by the way, he's a hoarder, right? How does he know none of those came up missing over nothing? Never mind. Take them back to the house. It has a field day cleaning them up. He likes doing that kind of shit. And, like, whatever. Of course, that evening, right, when I get back to my stepdad's mom's house, where his father does not live, I'm like, where's my backpack? And they're like, we don't know. Yeah, you're right. You don't know because it's lost in history now. But anyway, so okay, I end up wearing my stepdad's underwear that evening, which was kind of weird for me. And so after this trip, I was just like, no, fuck that. I'm not helping you guys do this. You're doing that on your own. Besides, I can see where your motivations are with this, and it's like, fuck do I care? I don't have any claim over his firearms, and there's no dog in the race for me. So like we go back, and so now we've got the dog, we've got his dad there, and it wasn't really a big deal. Like I'd cook for his dad, whatever. He mostly just sat and watched his John Wayne movies. And then I also had the dog, and I had to take care of the stuff while he was out of town. But it got to the point where he would be watching his movies, which, by the way, don't have anything against John Wayne. All right, he was a great actor. But what would happen is the neighbor's dog, which was very old and arthritic, would come into our yard, and my dog would start freaking out, and he'd let my dog out. And I told him multiple times, do not let my fucking dog out. Like, what are you doing? You're not doing any of this stuff. Just watch your movies, eat the food I cook for you. It's good, okay? Now, don't you know this man goes behind my back and goes to tell stepdaddy that, I had said this to him, and he was upset. Now, this story is going to come to a circle, and you're going to be like, wow, there's a certain point where somebody's feelings end and the rest of the world begins. And I'm going to show you this. I'm going to illustrate it for you. So, this whole thing, like with that and, my outlaw garden, comes to a point of contention with me and the stepdad. And, we all collectively decide that I'm supposed to leave. It was a Monday when we made this decision, all of us. I was supposed to leave on a Wednesday. I was going to live with a friend of mine. Her name was Maureen. Which, by the way, that's a story for another day. But anyways, yeah, so me knowing that I'm likely going back into the street, I'm just like, all right, I should catch up on rest because I can, why not, So I'm doing that, I'd get up and still, clean up the yard, whatever, clean up the house, vacuum, but I was taking a lot more naps because, why not, and let's see, Tuesday afternoon, I get woke up to the dog, Sam, my beagle, crying, right? And, I didn't want to wake up. I was pretty well deep into sleep, but, it just didn't stop. And so I get up and I go into the living room. It was a sunken basement. Walk up the stairs to the living room. And I see my dog in there bleeding all over the place. And it was pretty obvious that, Senior had let my dog out after I told him multiple times, don't do it. And so, neighbor's dog got to him, whatever. Neighbor comes over, his name was Perry. And, he felt bad about it. I know. And he offered to drive the dog to the vet, and he asked me if I wanted to go, and I regret this now because now I'd heard a few stories from vets that have to put dogs down. It's really better if you're that dog's owner that you go with them for that. But I didn't. I was just really upset, and looking back on it, he just really wanted to see me one more time. When he saw me, he stopped crying. So Harry gathered him up into a box, put him in the back of his pickup truck, took the dog to the vet. I go inside the house. Senior obviously knew what he'd done and knew how I felt about it, but he didn't say sorry to me. So Junior comes back around 11 o'clock at night, like normal time for him when he gets off of work, and basically let me know that Sam had been put down. And this was like 10 years ago, but it's still hard to talk about. Honestly, when I saw the first John Wick movie, I couldn't get through it because of that scene. You know the one. So, the next morning when I get up at 5 a.m. as I had been doing because, I set about, getting rid of all the dog stuff because, I didn't have a dog anymore. And, I took the carpet steamer and cleaned up all the blood stains on the carpet in the living room. And I thought it was going to be fine. I really did think that I was going to be, okay with it all. But what it was is that, I went about vacuuming the carpets up, and I kept finding dog biscuits that he would hide under the radiator vents. And at that point, I just sort of lost my shit, and I was like, I mean, my stuff was already packed. I was already planning on leaving. And so I was just like, fuck it, I'm out. Like, I don't want to deal with this now. And at that point, I left out. I connected with my friend Mo for a short time, but I ended up spending a lot of that summer camped out in Double Rock Park. I mean, if you're familiar with the area. And, like, I was in the street. I didn't have a job at the time. So I would go and I would beg for money, over on Bel Air Road, sometimes Rossville Boulevard down by Philadelphia Road. And a few times I saw my stepdad driving in the truck, taking his dad to and from doctor's appointments, never really stopped to say anything to me, whatever. And of course, I still had to go back there, deal with the last of my shit, kill off my garden, and, all that. I had a van at the time. I had to sell that, But it sounded like he wanted me to come back. And, I mean, the way he made it was like, oh, yeah, the rent's too expensive, whatever. And, yes, it was too much for me. Yeah. Like, he only wanted me there to take care of his dad. He didn't want me there for anything else. And if it came down to it, so, it's like, yeah, I helped build that house, but, I mean, I guess that's not my home. But I guess I learned a lot from that experience. I don't know. Shortly after there, around the end of that summer, was when I came to Philly, and so I didn't really want to go back to my hometown because, well, I had already been gone for so long and it didn't feel like home anymore. And I didn't like the idea of just getting stuck somewhere that I didn't choose to go. So that's pretty much why I decided to leave there. And that's the story of that. But